Hello, my Richies, and welcome back to another episode of the Sunday Strategy Sessions here on the Make Life Rich Movement podcast. My name is Sara. I'm your host. And in today's first Sunday sessions of 2025, we are going to switch it up a little bit this year. I've been really trying to narrow down what exactly I wanted Sunday strategies to be like. And overall, I think during the first year and a half of the show, and certainly the last 300 episodes that had included Sunday strategy sessions, a lot of what we were discussing were business things, very easy ways to start your business, how to wrap your brain about thinking about what you want to do in your life, finding your purpose, how to write press release, how to find media contacts, building a community, believing in yourself when you're running your business, getting rid of imposter syndrome, so many different topics. And while all of that was so foundational to the show and what the show is about, we are going to be evolving away from that a little bit this year. My personal word for 2025 is surrender. And for me, a very type A individual, a Taurus, if you know anything about astrology, it's like almost impossible for me to change. And it's feels nearly impossible for me to not be in control at all times. And there have been some certain scenarios, certainly over the last few months, but absolutely within the last 5 years of my life, where I learned that I have absolutely no control over the overall decisions that happen in my life. I can take the actions that I wish to take that are putting me in the correct places that are going to lead me to hopefully the outcomes that I desire or something better. But for me, surrendering and really diving into that and what that means for me and how it helps me to exist and evolve is partially what I'll be covering this year. And it felt apropos for me to do so because there are so many of you that have reached out and just expressed how you're in the same place and how you find yourself looking for a bit more foundation to build around belief in yourself, belief in a higher power, belief in this world, belief in the ability to change and to do so with your heart leading the way. So we will be covering various topics on Sundays, but you can be guaranteed that we're going to be covering a lot about spirituality, metaphysics, psychology, very woo-woo stuff. We'll throw in some conspiracies in there because, I live on the Bay. And if you saw my episodes from last year, we've got some visitors and they're out there nightly. And they've been out there nightly for years, but the rate at which they are visiting is absolutely increased and it's quite peculiar. So we'll be talking about some conspiracy theories, and overall, just keeping you guys more up to date with what my actual life is like, who I am as a person. That was something that was expressed last year that I really didn't know how to wrap my head around. People wanting to know more about me. I feel like I'm a rather open book in that regard, but I think some of you are more interested in the day-to-day of what I'm doing. So I figured to kick off our Sunday strategy sessions, we'll start off with a weekly wrap-up for how my week went. I'm a huge reader, and there were some books on deck for this week. And I'm going to show you a book that I'm starting to read for next week. I'm finishing up this book, Why We Remember. It is by Dr. Sharon Raghunath. It is a beautiful book, makes a lot of sense. And I'll absolutely be covering this in a future Sunday strategy episode. But it really is taking you through the science of memory and how science, namely neuroscience, partners with your memory, belief, things like that. This book is awesome. Love it. Hope I can have him on as a guest soon. And then I am starting this one next, How We Break, Navigating the Wear and Tear of Living. And this is by Vincent Deary. Really excited for this one. I think that this is going to be hopefully someone I can get onto the podcast, but this topic is one that I think, even if I can't get Vincent on the show, we will break down and cover in a Sunday strategy session. And I will preface this next book. I'm not a religious person. I did not grow up in organized religion. My parents both had their individual issues with it from their youth, and it really led them to want us to really just believe more in nature and relying on good morals to kind of supersede the need for an organized religion. And I find myself in this present age of just being very curious about the origins of religion, where it started. Never really read the Bible for the intent of focusing on the meaning behind it. I did have to read it in 10th grade for English and kind of do a lot of grammar stuff with that. But again, I was in 10th grade, I was a child. Could have no real understanding of the words, the implications, the translations, the deciphering of this book that so many millions, even billions of people around the world rely on to live their life. And in an effort to become a little bit more acquainted and to get a further understanding of the history and the people and the formation of the individual books that went into making the Bible, I've been reading a slew of religious historical writings and texts and books discussing who the translators were and so many things. It's been fascinating. And pairing it with a ton of History Channel Ancient Alien-esque architecture shows that are showing you biblical architecture, hunting for the places that are mentioned in the Bible. And I will tell you, I feel a little flabbergasted in not knowing how much history was steeped within these books. I really did believe that these were mainly fable-based. I could have tried to believe that Jesus was a person in a previous life, and now it seems almost certain that he was. And there is so much history to back that up. And if you're someone of faith listening, thank you for the grace you're allowing me right now to have this conversation with you. But as a complete novice, these are things that I think narratively were left out within the systems of oppression and operation that we exist under as a country that didn't really allow you to grasp the full, just like momentum of information, understanding, and reality that is contained within the Bible. All of that said, I'm currently reading a book by Marty Solomon, Asking Better Questions of the Bible. This I was very excited about. Marty's a theologian. I really, really, really want him on the show this year, so fingers crossed that I can make that happen. But I just enjoyed so much that he really wanted to take the questions out of approaching the Bible with a modern twist so that it is a little bit easier for those that have been jaded or didn't really have a great interaction with the Bible from an early age. They could, an organized religion, they could kind of approach it on their own terms. So this for me is pure history and research, and I am really enjoying all of that and cannot wait to jump back into this. There is a really big part of me that is so excited for the new rendition of the Sunday strategy sessions because I am a person that's reading and just almost extracurricularly doing so much research on things that fascinate me. And the topic of spirituality, metaphysics, just the universe in general, the understanding of God and where did we come from? How are we here? What's our purpose? So many questions come in for me, and I gather a lot of data. I read a lot of books and articles. I consume a lot of podcasts while doing my work throughout the week for my clients. And I have never, ever used or relied upon notes in the past for the podcast because I just love shooting from the hip. That's kind of how I fly. I get into the flow state and then an episode pops out for you guys. But for these Sunday strategy sessions, there'll certainly be the aspect of a lot of free flow conversating that you're used to. But I am going to be really pulling from the notes so we can really get to the nitty gritty of it because these are lessons and things that I have compiled on the spirituality side since 2010, and all of it has led to and been a component of the spiritual journey that I find myself on. And if you find yourself in that place or you find yourself ready to start a spiritual journey, I hope that these Sunday strategy sessions, as well as interviews with guests throughout the week, are going to be some of the pieces that you put in your toolkit. I want to state that a really beautiful book that was pretty out there, but rather easy to grasp once you allowed yourself to believe in the power of it was Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. If you are new to the supernatural realm or just giving more credence to believing in the universe and your connection to it, the fact that you're a very powerful being and there are parts of you that have been dormant and are just chomping at the bit to be reawakened and utilized to put your soul and your purpose to its full potential, book's going to help. This book's going to help a lot. There are so many beautiful meditations and things that come from this, but I think In trying to siphon energy out of the present moment, which has always been a very deep point of focus for me, I was always curious about what the science of that present moment was and how I, a vessel of meat, a meat sack with energy, am connecting to this universe that exists above and below and around me. And we speak, we connect, we interact. So the Joe Dispenza book was really influential in just helping to tie it all together. And there's a fuckload of science in this book. There's so many just readings, and he worked with the top scientists and medical professionals within the neuroscience field to just be able to compile a lot of really beautiful diagrams and studies and information that went into making this book and to ultimately leading to his practice. And I think one of the biggest things for me that in recommending to someone beginning this journey, I think it's really important that you consume as much as you can. Follow the trail of what excites you. You don't need to read something because I'm recommending it, but Joe Dispenza might be a really great pop off point for you, especially if you're going to be utilizing YouTube to listen or consume this information while you're at work or driving or doing whatever you're doing. So, Joe Dispenza is a great place to start. He certainly opened up my eyes to what, in trying to explore the deeper dimensions of me wanting to understand how basically the biology of my belief can enhance my spiritual experience in a way that I said allows God, universe, the source, the creator to connect with me in this meat suit, this little old Sara in this little old meat suit, a little 5'4" little thing, and been down some rabbit holes. So let's start out with the integration of science and spiritual understanding. Now, when we're thinking of spiritual understanding, spirituality, spiritual practices, here's some things that come to mind: yoga, breath work, meditation, visualization work, mantra work. I have a really cool, actually, I have several cool mantra tracks with some beautiful custom made hertz that Fernando made, my husband, for me. And I will link those in the show notes below. There's one for working called the Genius frequency, and then the 528 hertz, which is just the love frequency and just feeling good in your body, feeling great with who you are. So I'll put those in below. They're also a really great place to start. Mantras, listening to hertz, just allowing your body to calm itself. And you'll be surprised at how quickly it does begin to calm itself, especially when you're listening to hertz that have some type of mantra or meditation attached, which I have for you, and it'll be in the show notes. The discovery that meditation, prayer, visualization work, breath work, they're all activating both the emotional and the rational parts of our brain at the same time. And typically, these brain centers aren't firing at once. For them to both be engaged at the same time suggests that these practices create a very unique state of consciousness. Now, Joe Dispenza takes you through the different states of consciousness, but there are brain waves and frequencies that we are constantly dipping in and out of, always have been, and moving forward, you will have the information at your fingertips to be able to help yourself move in and out of these states a little bit more easily with the practices of spiritual tools at your disposal. But to step back a bit, because we are aware now that meditation and prayer are giving us both the emotional and the rational reaction centers firing in our brain, it's almost as if this is a super action that our brain is not only deeply enjoying, but is simultaneously emotionally and corporally, your body bringing together your nervous system into a state of equilibrium. It was interesting for me when I first started with, I think my very first tiptoe into spirituality started with whatever's meant to be will be. And that phrase drove me crazy because at the time, the desire to control was so strong, it would physically affect me. I would sweat, I'd get mad, I'd have rage fits there. It wasn't even like panic attacks. That to me is something different, but the need and desire for control and things not going my way and it derailing me entirely led me to adopting the mantra of whatever's meant to be for me is going to happen and it's going to come. And I have to ride that wave and I have to ebb and flow and up and down. And that little phrase allowed me to let things slide a little bit easier down my back when things went wrong, which led to my mindset being a little bit more cohesive with a calmer, more natural state of existence. Now, when looking for an integrated state of consciousness, which was what I ultimately was trying to achieve when entering into even trying to get a grasp of what spirituality, metaphysical practices, and healing practices were all about, I found myself just thinking these things were so silly. Like, I am worked up right now. You're telling me that this silly little mantra is going to help me feel better. And you're telling me that sitting quiet for 5 minutes and having some breaths and being mindful is going to make me feel better. They were just things that like I could never believe. I just would look people in the face and be like, it's great it works for you, but it's never going to work for me. Okay. Like, get out of my face. I actually was such a different person back then. Prior to 2010, Sack was a troubled, angry gal who had a lot of grief buried deep that she didn't even know she had and was just trying to do her best. And I hurt a lot of people. I hurt myself for many years. And the gift of giving myself the ability to believe in this silly little phrase of whatever's meant to be will happen was actually the first step to me being able to harness any belief in anything bigger than myself. I had to give myself the permission to be a little vulnerable and think something so silly could never help me, but like, what if, right? Like, let me open it on up. And in opening it on up, I did really find some comfort in the additional practices that were to come. Yoga, that was very brand new for me. Understanding that emotions are trapped in our body and our fascia. That actions and purposes with intent, like yoga and stretching and movement and journaling and visualization, are going to help expel all of those trapped emotions. Another thing that's keeping you grounded in a negative way from being able to expand your spiritual practice. And ultimately, blocking you from being able to believe. I think a phrase that came later in my life around 2015 was, like, quit blocking your blessings. I was blocking so much growth in my life because I just would not get out of the way. And what was blocking me was belief. It was so hard for me to not just grab things and take it and make it do what I want and have control and be in control. And like, the thought of surrendering was so uncomfortable to me and still is, but it's getting better. And it's getting better with action. But in looking at the biology of belief, when you do allow belief to creep into your life and begin to take hold, there is a physical body reaction that tends to follow. And namely, it's your nervous system reacquainting itself with operating at a normal, healthy, functional pace, rather not reacting to every single little thing, trying to control every aspect of your life. It also opens you up to the flow state, which is another really beautiful way that you can give yourself the gift of your passion and your purpose aligning and you finding yourself lost in something you love doing. Almost as if you come out of it in a stupor and you're like, whoa, where did I go? Because I have been sitting here typing this book that I'm working on for the last 3 hours. Time has completely left me. The flow state is so fun and so beautiful. You've probably hit flow state in a workout class where you find yourself zipping through class and at the end of it, you're on a high and you're like, wow, like I felt in the rhythm. I felt like I had great, body control over what I was doing. I felt like my mindset was diving in and it was helping me to push further and harder. And I believed in myself. Like, that flow state is attainable for us all. And in future episodes, we will absolutely cover flow state. We'll cover the different states of being that you can find yourself in, alpha, theta, and beta, and the different practices that you can go in and out of that are going to help you hit these states of flow, alpha, beta, and theta, depending on what it is that you're looking to do for yourself within your spiritual practice of your day. Now, if we're getting back to both the emotional and the rational brain being activated at the same time through these spiritual practices that are allowing us to not only touch belief, but begin to harness bits of it, enough so that it starts to take hold and belief feels like something we believe in. There is an integration that helps to explain why these spiritual experiences often feel both deeply personal and very meaningful in a universal sense. You feel very connected. And that feeling of just oneness. If you felt it before, you know exactly what I mean. It could be something as simple as having a mindful walk in nature with your pet. And all of a sudden you look up and you see the sun shining, and you feel your chin go up in the air, and you're just taking it all in and letting the sun hit your skin. And then, oh, you notice the breeze is blown open your coat, and you can feel it pressing against your chest in the wind. And then you hear a bird chirp in your ear, and you feel at one. It's almost like you're a fairy princess coming out of coming out of a deep sleep. And that oneness that you feel, that like glue of dopamine that makes you feel like there's no place else you should be. It brings a smile to your face. That is the emotional and rational brain coming together. Your rational brain is always going to be searching for the emergency, searching for the fire to put out, that your emotional brain is signaling to your body is present. It's not. Very often, it's not. That email coming in from your dickhead boss should not be alerting your body emotionally that all firing on all cylinders, get the fire trucks here. There is an emergency. To where your rational brain shows up and they're like, where's the fire? What the fuck's going on? Why am I here wasting taxpayer dollars? Where's the fire? Why am I wasting energy showing up rationally to deal with a problem that emotionally feels present, but rationally is not? And getting that equilibrium, getting the two to balance the scales together is where your nervous system comes into play, your vagus nerve. If these are brand new terms to you, I am so excited because you're really going to love Sunday strategy sessions, as well as so many guest episodes coming up where we cover anxiety, the nervous system, the vagus nerve. There's so much at play here. But the basis of being able to begin regulating these parts of you that have been firing for so long is rewiring your brain with the gift of belief. And that belief does not need to be in someone other than yourself. I think the best place to start is belief in yourself. And in that moment of taking the walk and feeling the sun and your body just truly opening up to the elements of nature and that to your soul, you can recreate that. And the fact that you can connect in that way at all means that you very purposefully are a part of this big system. And the belief in yourself and knowing that you can be the key component to your healing and to your spiritual evolution is where all of this unlocks and starts. I had a lot of problem in believing in myself, and my self-worth and self-value are absolutely skyrocketing due to the work that I've been doing in my spirituality and just overall self-growth. I think there is a really big space for practitioners to understand these different mechanisms of how we react and what parts of our body and our biology are firing off to these emotional responses in a way that's going to allow them to refine their spiritual practices and their offerings to individuals like you and I that are going to get a deeper engagement. Much like how you need to understand the proper techniques of a breathwork practice or meditation, all of that is all well and good. But without the intent and the belief that you yourself can take these practices and do something good with them internally, without the belief in the action, and ultimately that belief in yourself, a lot of these efforts can and probably have in the past fallen to the wayside with no real lasting effect on you. Now, I can say that neurologically, and a lot of this is discussed with Dr. Joe Dispenza, as well as a ton of other people that talk about the rewiring of your neuroscience, the rewiring of your brain in a way that allows you to tap into these pockets of belief and magic much sooner. I guess like the neurobiological validation of these processes that you and I have gone through time and time and time again, and knowing that there is a synapse firing in your brain when these things are happening can feel a little daunting. But the one thing for me that made me feel, gosh, like I just ripped the lid off of Pandora's box and threw it away was the fact that your brain, the neuro workings of your brain that lead you to do every single function you possibly do in a day, like get ready to get aggravated when you get in the car and there's someone driving slow in front of you and you've got to get somewhere, and because you're late yourself, now you're pissed at the person in front of you because they're driving a little bit below the speed limit. That reaction to that quick trigger has been embedded in your neurological workings because of years and years and years and years of reacting that way. Your brain wants to make life easier for your body. So if things are commonplace in your reactions or in the way that you behave or the things that you do in your day-to-day, your brain is going to make a smooth pathway for that in your brain. So the neurons firing have a shorter distance to get there. The beauty of this process is that at any moment, you can stop in the middle of a synapse that is so smoothly woven into your brain and go, not today. I'm not getting mad today. I left work a little bit later today to avoid the traffic that I always hit that keeps me behind that school bus. And in doing so, I'm going to drive home and I'm going to play a little podcast that I've been waiting to listen to, and I'm going to smile and I'm going to enjoy myself. And your brain gets in the car and it's anticipating getting mad because it's traffic time with school buses after work, and there are no school buses. And in this instance, you removed the stimuli that's giving you that reaction. But the action of removing the stimuli also simultaneously removed your reaction of acting to the stimuli. Another great way to go about it. And this, when I read the book about 4 years ago, I was dealing a lot with someone close to me and just trying to catch myself from being snippy. There's a lot of resentment and things that I had been working through with that person at the time, and I caught myself being snippy at them for something that happened so long ago that they aren't even aware of I care about. And they were having a great old day. I would always be, not always, but when in a bad mood or tired or just taxed in any way, it would be the reaction for me to kind of be a little bit like to this person, which is not my normal state of being and should have been my sign all along that there's something here to think about, because this is gross and it's rude and this isn't who you are. And this person also is almost innocent in the fact that they have no idea what you're thinking, and their current actions of not putting away the milk or whatever it is are in no way, shape, or form connected to the thing that you are harboring resentment from your inner child. So think about that, okay? But in the moment, I found myself just getting really ashamed of myself for reacting this way, and I wanted to do something about it. And this book was really helpful, and Dr. Dispenza's work was so integral in me just being able to have grace for myself, catching myself in the moment about to be nasty or whatever it was, and say, we're not going to do that today. That immediately stopped that neuron before it got to the completion of the path where it told my mouth to be snippy. And in doing that, I then I let that energy out that would have came out verbally. And in that very moment, I began rewiring that current reaction to say, no more. Now I'll take a breath. And over time, I've been able to take more breaths and then been able to and respond to them kindly to the current scenario that we're in, and not the one I'm keeping on my back from 20 years ago that subconsciously I wasn't even aware of keeping. So when you're trying to think about that validation of the neurological work that you are doing and will continue to do, that's helping to rewire your brain through these different spiritual practices, these ancient, deep practices, we have to know that we aren't the first ones to feel these kinds of benefits. We have to know that there are people 3,000 years ago that were doing this breath work for the sheer instance of not being snippy with someone in their life, or, to have a little less anger in their day because they're mad their kids didn't sweep the front yard. I don't know. This is not a new problem. And these are not new solutions. However, they are new to us. And I think the beauty of this revolution of these ancient practices coming back to life during a time where we have so much science available at our fingertips at any moment is so encouraging. It has made the thoughts and topic of belief, like someone for me who didn't really have a religious or spiritual background at their disposal to help ascertain certain things about life and make my life feel a certain way. I'm now able to do so because I can grasp the concept a little bit better when there are neurons and different things attached that help me to understand why these things are happening. Our emotions are so deeply tied to the neurological workings of our brain. And I think it's really important for you to know that at any moment, you can rewire all of your neurology for the things that you don't like, the bad habits you're looking to get rid of, whether it's a sugar addiction or just any kind of thing you might label under discipline for yourself. That discipline is being set in stone day after day after day of you implementing these habits neurologically with the rewiring of you implementing the discipline into your daily practice. So, when we're talking about the validation of these traditional practices having a neuro and biological impact, I think it's important to remember that these practices have been around for millennia. We're not reinventing the wheel here at all. And the simplicity of taking what has been done for thousands of years and adding it to your daily routine is not only novel, it's something that I think you will really come to enjoy. We're so technologically connected these days. And I don't know about you, but any moment that I can disconnect and just be at one with myself or one with others, I'm taking it. I'm taking that moment and I'm taking 5 minutes more. So, the traditional emphasis on repetitive prayer or chanting or meditation appears to calm our default mode network, which is our nervous system. We have a few different types of nervous systems, but typically our autonomic nervous system is just running in the background. That's when you're driving, it knows for you to keep pushing that pedal and whoops, here comes a car. Let me get out of the lane while you may be talking to someone or, maybe you're typing an email while you're speaking with your coworker and you're not even thinking about what you're typing. It's just typing because it's memorized the keys and there you go. That's your default network. It's running your body's physical characteristics. It can, keep making dinner while you're holding a baby and burping them and having a conversation and oops, now I need to go into the fridge. Like it's what's running in the background. And if you're not careful, your emotional brain can really run this nervous system into the ground simply by overloading it when it already has a set standard of tasks that it is used to completing for you at a second's notice, because these are things you've always done physically. Reducing the anxious, almost like self-referential states we find ourselves in that can lead to panic attacks, to anxiety fits, where you just have a day full of anxiety, a belly that's in knots, and you're like, oh, what do I do? Logically, we would be able to pinpoint if you're hooked up to EKGs and a ton of other cool things, where exactly in your brain this anxiety was being lit up and what was causing it. And the cool thing about that is that really, no matter what is causing it outside of a physical ailment like an injury or disease, and even with some diseases, you still have the ability to implement these ancient practices to help you take control over your nervous system, to help bring the emotional and the rational brains back to a more even playing field. In the past, the science of belief, and namely, daily practices were done and have been done for millennia that were done to connect our corporal body and the soul within it to the powers that be around us. And over time, things like communal worship and meeting on certain days of the week to have your religious practices and maybe waking up every morning with the sun and doing sun salutations and then a meditation after and visualizing, whether it's a religiously based practice or a metaphysical healing practice like breathwork, visualization, mindset work, meditation. You're going to have not only increased oxytocin releases, which are going to make your body and your brain, your neurological wiring, want to do this more and more, but the big kicker here is the social bonding. And in order to meet with a group and talk about things like prayer and meditating or visualizing together or doing mindset work together or praying together or doing yoga together, all of these things are deeply entrenched in the social bondings and the trust that comes with that. And that trust often opens you up individually to feeling a bit more centered and a bit more validated in that process of engaging in the act. So let's say you've gone to your first meditation class and you're like, oh my God, I don't have a cool little pill. I didn't bring anything. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. You get in the room, very nervous about class. You're like, man, I don't even know if I'm supposed to be here. But everyone in the room's really nice and everyone's shooting some smiles and they're getting into the zone and they're calming down, and teacher comes in and they sit down and practice begins. And at first you're just like, oh no, this is a bad idea. How am I going to sit here quiet for this long? Oh no, 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 no. And throughout the fidgeting, the first few minutes of meditation practice, you're looking around the room. You start to see physical calm take over your neighbor to your left, physical joy paint the face of the neighbor to your right, and then your body, your rational brain begins to recognize that this is a safe space where there are no predators, because the person to my left is exhibiting calm. The person to my right is exhibiting facial features of joy. My eyes take this into my brain. My brain registers this. It goes, this is a safe space. Let's take off the first coat of armor that we have that's keeping us up here when we came to be a little bit more down here. And in your body recognizing that those around you are safe, you start to feel safe. And then meditation starts to get a little easier, starts to get a little more fun. Midway through class, you're like, holy fuck, I've been sitting here for half an hour. I'm doing it. Let's take a little peek again. Wow, my neighbor is gone. They are gone. They have left their body and gone somewhere else. I don't even know how I know that, but I can look at them and I know they're connecting to something right now. They're no longer in this room. Oh, and the person on my right, wow, they've got tears streaming down their face. Their chest is rising quicker, quicker. They're releasing energy that's been trapped. They're healing. My body feels that this is a time and a place to get deeper, to sink in, because the energy field of the person to my left and the energy field of the person of my right are healing. They're expanding beyond the teeny tiny parameters that their day and their boss and society has inflicted upon them. And on this teeny little pillow, they have left the building. And it's all because of belief. Belief in the moment that they could make a change by going to this class. Belief in the moment where they sat down on that pillow and they started to ground their intentions for what they were going to do that day. Belief in the feeling that they get when their rational brain and their emotional brain are talking together. And then belief in the flow state that takes them out of their body, or belief in the flow state that helps to wash them clean. It is such a magical, magical thing to feel, but to be able to simultaneously back it up with the science of neurobiology makes it truly a no-brainer. And that was what I wanted to get across today in this episode. You can have an actual understanding of belief and allow it to be beyond yourself in a way that only reverberates backward to make you 1000% feel solid in the belief and the faith that you have for you and yourself and your output and your life and your soul and what you're going to do with it. I find that in also the social bonding and the trust that comes with these moments, I am innately going to want to go back to that place next week. I'm going back to that same class again. And I cannot wait to tap down and in with the community in the room with me and get to that place sooner. There is this adage of heart hugs, right? If you have a child, you've done this with your child, held them to your chest, and all of a sudden your heartbeats are in the same frequency. We have about a 3-foot shield of energy around us that when you're near someone else, you can feel your energy being like, oh my God, yay, coming in for a big hug, or ooh, and you feel repelled and you want to get away from that sphere of energy around them. And I think there's something to be said about your body interpreting the energy, your emotions reading it, and then your neurobiology coming in and saying, yes, no, worry about this, don't worry about this. And I really think that The findings that we have now also give us such an understanding of the true implications of what these earlier ancestors over millennia were able to not only engage with, but connect with something so much, so technologically advanced. They had no idea what was happening in here, but they knew what was happening in here. And now we have the physical neuroscience, the scans, the reports, the labs, the research to back up the thing that you feel when you settle down and you get in to your spiritual work. I think for me, that was the aha moment that I needed. I needed to know that these ancient practices are so intuitively developed because they were done at a time when there was no way to fact check with science what was going on inside the body and the soul and the mind. And I think it's something that also led me to really get a grasp of understanding how I can optimize my brain function to help my well-being, to heal myself, to heal my emotions, to heal my body, because I'm able to bring down my emotions and I'm not firing cortisol through my body 24/7, making myself sick, making my immune system fire when it doesn't need to, because again, that rational brain is reacting to the fire that the emotional brain sent out. For me, belief also took me into a direction of giving credence to and allowing myself to embrace almost an enhanced understanding of what my transcendent experiences were in the past and all that have happened since I began this journey. There have been brain scans done during deep periods of sleep, and it is showing decreased activities in areas that process spatial awareness and self boundaries. And this neural pattern is helping to explain why mystics and the ancient healers of our past, across all different kinds of cultures, were experiencing and reporting very similar feelings and vibes of unity and transcendence. That unity and that transcendence, that oneness that you feel that makes you lift your chin to the sun when you're outside and you're taking in that moment, is deeply, deeply embedded in our neurobiology. The oneness that we feel is coming from inside ourselves, while deeply and very meaningfully connecting to every single thing that exists outside of us. That transcendence is something that you really wouldn't consider a neural brain pattern, but it is. And the beauty of it being a neural brain pattern is that you can continue to create more of these synapses, more of these grooves within this little squishy pink brain of yours that are going to allow you to tap into belief and understanding and spirituality and transcendence so much quicker. So, how do we go about doing this? We are doing this through a daily practice. Doesn't matter where you start. It can start with a mantra that you repeat to yourself when you're pissed off or you find yourself ready to react. Or it could be taking a moment to put your hand on your belly and your heart and just feel a couple of breaths and know that you're safe in this moment. You're alive. You're breathing. So many didn't wake up today to this reality you're currently experiencing. And although at this present moment, it's not feeling very good, it is still a blessing to have, and you will move through it. There's so much about these experiences and the ability for scientists that don't believe in this connectivity between the outside and the inside should just wave it off as like brain activity. Like, oh, no, that's just your brain doing this and that. It's what it does. It's electric. That's how it goes. And this kind of dismisses the belief. And I think it is a scientific discussion that is really fading to black. There is absolutely so much more information these days that is leaning towards belief and the brain being something much more than belief and the brain. It's almost as if belief is the action that we take with the interface of our brain to interact with like the Wi-Fi of the universe, God, the creator, whomever you would like to speak to, all coming into one. Like God is the Wi-Fi, universe is the Wi-Fi, your brain is the Wi-Fi router tapping in, and then the neural networks that are taking the Wi-Fi code that was sent from God to your brain because of this action that you're doing, this moment that you tapped into. And then the brain, your computer, is taking that and then it's processing and computing that information to dial down. Are you going to calm down? Are you going to go up? Where is it going to take you? For me, that validates that what I'm experiencing is universally significant in the human experience. This is something that we were always meant to have. This is not something new. And me, if you are a person that is religious, has followed a religion, or you followed a spiritual practice for much of your life, and you really haven't thought much about the brain and the way that it interacts, I really encourage you to take a little bit of time here and kind of figure out what this means for you personally. Personally, for me, recognizing that my neurobiology was actually something I could manipulate and continually be making better for me, better for my immune system, better for my nervous system, better for my overall life, better for my relationships. It gave me the ability to really and truly take solace and great comfort in the fact that our brains are naturally structured to enable transcendent experiences. And because of that, I can only interpret that as this fact potentially pointing to a deeper meaning in our capacity for spirituality that has been toned down, not had any kind of massive attention drawn to, in a way that I think really leads others to think it woo-woo, not real. Oh, it's not going to help me. But much like DMT receptors in the brain, which we all have, not all, a good fair amount of animals and plants have DMT receptors, which means that for some reason, we're supposed to be interacting with DMT. Similarly to our brain, we have receptors in our brain that are meant to receive THC. Why? I don't know. And we'll continue to unlock the parts of our brain that are secret to us. But I find it so comforting to know that something that has been happening for millennia is not only what we're supposed to do, but with the ability of science in one hand and tradition in the other, we are able to bring the two together and really get like a bird's eye view, as well as a very intricate look into what exactly spirituality, belief, understanding of our greater, deeper purpose looks like in our brain and what it means for us and what we should do about it. Now, if you find yourself in a place where you're like, okay, cool, what are like the long-term effects here? Like, is this actually going to help me, or is this something that just in the moment is going to help me to micromanage my emotions in my day? Heard. So a regular spiritual practice creates long-lasting changes in the brain regions that are associated with empathy, emotional regulation, and self-awareness. So that's that short, immediate burst that you're going to get when you enter into tapping into these different spiritual practices for the purpose of trying to integrate belief and overall calm into your neurobiology. There is also changes that correlate with practitioners' reports of increased compassion and reduced reactivity. So my example that I gave with trying not to be snippy to a person over something that happened many years ago that they aren't even aware I'm upset about anymore. And using the in the moment to stop that neural pathway that is so used to taking that route, and I'm diverting it into another. I'm saying, hey, we got a detour today, buddy. You're heading that way to Happy Town because I'm not going this way anymore. So there is that transformation that is happening. And understanding these mechanisms are going to give you the approach that you may have been looking for to a spiritual practice with greater patience and trust in the evolution of gradual change that over time is going to reroute your brain in a way that allows you to become a completely different person. I can say with all of the belief in the world that I am a totally different person because of this work. In 2010, I was absolutely a shell of a human of who I am now. And it was because I had no foundation of my own to cling to. I did not feel safe alone with myself. I didn't feel safe in what I was doing. And I felt like I was flailing. I was a feather in the wind, like a plastic bag. wanting to start again. That was me. I was a plastic bag floating in the wind. And belief gave me the fortification within myself that I needed to continue on this spiritual practice, to continue reaching for those moments where I felt solid in who I was and what I was doing. It also then led me to my purpose, which is, talking to you and sharing all of these things, because this practice, these 15 years of work, have truly changed not only my life, but my soul. It is a completely different existence for me. And I can say that it is the compounding effects that I also got to benefit from immediately. And there aren't too many things in life that you can say that about. They're benefiting you immediately, and they're benefiting you every day that you do it, and then they're benefiting you in the long run. I think also the unexpected joy of this process for me has been coming amongst others and being with those that are also on this practice. It was part of why I started the show. I wanted to speak with people that have overcome something in their life through spiritual growth and got to the other side. And not only in getting to the other side did they solve their original problem that they were trying to get away from, but it led them to finding their purpose. It led them to opening up to themselves and believing that whatever they think that they were put here to do, God damn it, they should put some effort into it and they should do it. They should put some intent behind those actions and bring it to life. And I think bridging the individual and the collective experience of engaging in spiritual practices, even if you're just talking about doing them and what it's doing for you and how you feel about it, neuroscience shows that individual spirit practices can affect your social brain networks. It is, in essence, the spiritual practices are giving your brain the input that it needs, that is leading you to increase your compassion and your community engagement, the way that you live amongst others. That is not only allowing you to understand the connections that you have with others, but the connection with yourself that is leading you to a broader and healthier social well-being. Because you yourself are in control of your actions and how you put your actions out into the world and how that affects others. And if you find yourself amongst a crowd or a group of friends that are all on a spiritual journey, you're all elevating. It's a rising tide that's going to float all boats. But you may have one or two in the group that aren't working on their spirituality. And on their bad days, you really may feel their energy 3 feet out repelling you like, whoa, girl, keep that over there. And it's not something to use as an understanding of like, oop, you're not for me, but it will become very apparent to you pretty quickly who and who is not on a spiritual path to belief in themselves and a faith in their life and what they're doing. And when you do have these social networks, I do think that is when the deepening of purpose in meetings starts to come into play. The exchange of what you've learned with others and hearing what they've learned and letting it all marinate, and then kind of diving into the involvement of understanding that our brain networks are associated with meaning and meaning making experiences in your spiritual practices that kind of suggests that there is somehow, some way, spirituality playing a fundamental role in how you and I decide what our purpose is. If we don't have, how can I say this a little bit differently? Prior to finding belief in myself, I did not believe that I had the self-worth or value to take the leap into not only finding what my purpose is, but going head over heels for it and doing it day in and day out. I think when you come to find a spiritual practice that begins to help you declutter the noise, the energy that's not yours or not meant for you or never was meant for you, the ability to compartmentalize and clear a field, if only for a few moments, for you to be able to, for the first time, maybe ever, or that day, feel what you want. Feel who you are and allow feeling what you want and knowing who you are to bubble up to where you go, What about that kid's book I've been talking about writing? I think I'm meant to be a children's author. I think I'm meant to be a children's author that teaches little kids how to be kind to their pets. I'm going to go with it. Maybe you wouldn't have had that epiphany if you were bogged down with work and your boyfriend being a dick and, oh shit, I have to go grocery shopping and I feel like crap because I said I was going to run today and then I didn't run today and now I feel like a loser on top of all these other things I have to do. And oh my Lord, what am I going to do tomorrow? I have this big presentation. I still have so much work to do. Dip out of that. Dip out of that with a spiritual practice that allows you to pull yourself out of that scenario, rewire that matter, rewire, and make it what you want. We can rewire and refire, as Dr. Dispenza likes to say, and the power and the capability to change your reality at any given moment is right here and right here. Depending on the spiritual practice that you choose and you lean upon, whether it's one or many, you have the ability to tap in at any moment and change not only your current reality, but the trajectory and the course that your day follows and the actions you take and the intention that they're led with can all be made better like that. That was what I needed when I started my journey. I was a miserable bitch. I had a lot deep inside of me that I didn't even know was there and needed to come out. And when you start your practice, you may find that you're purging a lot of stuff that fucking hurts. It sucks. It makes you feel ill. It makes you sick. It gives you anxiety. And that's okay. Just keep turning inward. Keep going deeper. Keep engaging in that practice, maybe a couple of times a day. And you will find a moment where you understand that approaching your spiritual practice, not just as a personal choice, but as an engagement with the core reality of what human nature is. And that just like our ancestors who had no Instagram to distract them, no YouTube or Spotify to listen to, no grocery store to go to bother with their chores for the day, they just had this and they let this and this lead them to where they were supposed to go. And it's something that we can tap into now. It is our birthright. It is the core of humanity to find the equilibrium, to allow the passion to flow, to allow the purpose to arise, to allow it to take hold and plant roots and grow and evolve in a way that allows your everyday actions to positively contribute to what is human existence within your lifetime. It really freaks me out how deeply we can dissect the aspects of human nature and the way it relates to spirituality and just overall our general feelings about ourselves and the world around us. But for me, knowledge of these mechanisms has helped me to keep very close to me a trust in my intuitive sense of meaning that comes to me. The downloads that are coming to me from these spiritual experiences, I take them as word. That's it. When they come in, I act on them. This podcast came to me during a visualization, and it was almost something that I swept under the carpet. And thank God I didn't. Thank God I didn't. But this kind of spiritual work, when you are taking a look at it from the aspect of rewiring your brain, is going to give you the ability to trust that intuition in a way that allows you to know that this isn't intuition. Woo intuition. This is a deep programming code that lives inside of you because it is your humanity. And we've been taught to ignore it because we've been meant to fit into a system, into a box. And thankfully, we are busting the seams off of that box because we are too great of beings to be kept. You are never meant to be kept. You're meant to thrive and explore. And the easiest way to start that, even if you find yourself in the concrete, you got some concrete boots on right now. The mob tossed you in the river years ago. It's okay. You can get out of it. You can get out of it and you can literally be thriving. And let me tell you, it's not a linear journey. Just like everything else in life, it ebbs and it flows. And I find myself right back at square one some days. But the beauty of square one is that I get to start all over again. And those intense emotions, I know for a fact that I can rewire and I can do so quickly. I kind of want to just touch on a few more points, and then we're going to jump right on out of this conversation because we're rounding out on an hour, and this might be the longest Sunday strategy session I've ever had. So thanks for sticking around if you're still here. And please let me know if you've enjoyed this content. Drop me a DM, comment on a reel, go to YouTube and leave a comment. I'm just so curious if this resonates with you and where you find yourself along your current spiritual journey. Now, when we're looking to enhance our integration of our spiritual practices with the understanding and somewhat rewiring of our neurobiology, just off of this conversation, I do deeply encourage you to read that book, Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza, because it talks about a lot of neurobiology in a very digestible way. But I want you to understand how different spiritual practices are affecting your brain and how they can help you to create a more balanced and effective routine. So what do I mean when I say that? For me, visualization or a quick 20-minute meditation where I have very intense points of focus that I am thinking about when I'm manifesting is how I like to start my day. After I've started my day in that manner, for like a midday boost, if I'm not taking a walk out in nature, which is absolutely a spiritual practice, as is reading, as is singing, as is playing an instrument, as is playing with your children or your pets, as is engaging with your loved ones, these are micro interactions of spiritual practices on the social level. And if you find yourself wanting to arrange certain spiritual practices within certain points of your day, go with it. Go with it. That's what works best for you and where you're currently at with your neurobiology. That's not to say it'll always be that way. It could change, it could evolve, but you can find yourself leaning towards different practices at different points in the day, or even different days in general when you're feeling, maybe you like to go off of your emotions and you're feeling so fired up and you're so upset. So you want to do some breath work to just get it out. Or maybe you're feeling lost and you need a little bit of guidance. You want to do a visualization practice, or, maybe you're just needing a little bit of support and you want to do a mindset track with some hertz, and you want to sit and ruminate with some mantras that are within a mindset track. I have 2 of those. They're in the show notes. Click them after the link. You're going to love them. But when you are able to kind of decipher what practices are helping you when, this knowledge is going to give you the ability to be able to design your ideal spiritual practice, and one that's going to support your specific goals and your needs, also while remaining true to the ancient traditions and practices that have always existed that are meant to unlock the core of your humanity, the purpose of why we are here. That was a mouthful, my Richies. I thank you so much for tuning in. I want to give you a little heads up about our 2 episodes, our 2 interviews we have coming up this week. On Tuesday, we have Sam Matthews. She is the owner and founder of Propagate Studios. She is such a sweet soul. I had her on last season. If you recall that name, she has an art thrift store and has recently expanded her empire. It's just so beautiful. But this episode is all about manifesting. She is an absolute pro at it. And to give you a little proof, I'll put in the show notes her previous episode where this girl manifested nearly every single thing that we talk about in this new episode. And on Thursday, we have a dear friend, Allison Sepanara, coming on. She is the anxiety healer, and we are discussing all things grief, anxiety, being able to give yourself the toolkit to get yourself through periods of trauma, and just overall life. Conversations with these 2 ladies this week are going to be the absolute gentle hug that you need to get through this first crazy month of 2025. My Richies, it means so much to me to have your time, attention, and your love. Please share this episode with some that is on their spiritual journey, or even if they've been on it for a while, maybe there's something in this episode that might touch them. It would also mean so much to me if you could rate and review this podcast wherever it is that you get your podcasts. My Richies, thank you so much. And as always, make life rich.